Content warning. Tone Deaf is rated explicit for mature content and strong language. Spoilers are in every episode, so if you haven't seen the shows we are reviewing, you can always check back in later with us. We'll be here when you get back.
Welcome to Tone Deaf, a theater nerd's guide for their musically challenged spouse. I'm Kay, a musical theater nerd.
And I'm Warren. I'm musically challenged.
Alright, so, are you ready for today's show?
Yes. Yes, I am. I think.
I kind of went on a little bit of a dive with this one, trying to find more information about the production and, like, the behind the production stuff, because there is information, but it's not, like, super detailed like when we cover older shows. But instead I found a review from... Well, we'll get into the review that I found that kind of made me go, I don't know how I feel about this show now. So, yeah, so for those who did not tune in last week, this week, we are covering Allegiance, which was available on Broadway on demand. It was available until June 23rd. They had extended the run. Originally, it was only going to be available for like 2 weeks, and then it was sort of like, well, we need to keep this available. So, Allegiance is going to be a show that's based on the life of George Takei, who most would remember as Sulu from Star Trek.
My.
Yes, and that, he's... I love George Takei.
Mm-hmm.
I actually got to meet him at a Star Trek convention, which was really fun. Maybe when things are back to normal, we can go do that Star Trek convention again. But this was conceived when Takei and his husband Brad went to an off-Broadway show and found themselves sitting next to Jay Kuo and Lorenzo Tione. I think. Tione? Oh, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. So they got to talking about how much they loved theater, and then the next day they were seated together again at In the Heights, which is a show that is a Lin-Manuel Miranda show, and I really am sad that the film adaptation of that has been postponed. Stupid Arona.
Ruins everything.
Yeah, it does. So, the song Useless, which is sung by the father in the show, lamenting his inability to provide for his family, struck Takei. And during intermission, he ended up telling the pair that they had met previously all about his own experiences growing up in a Japanese internment camp in America during World War II. And this was the catalyst for the musical. I'm not going to go into too much detail on some of this stuff because I don't want to spoil anything, but just so that you know, this episode at the start is going to talk about some of the reviews because this show has some of the most mixed reviews I've ever seen.
Really?
Yes. So, Allegiance is historically significant of a show. To quote Tran Diep in American Theater Magazine, this is the first Broadway musical created by Asian Americans, directed by an Asian American, with a predominantly Asian cast and an Asian American viewpoint informing the work.
Wow.
Before this, the only shows that you would really have would have been South Pacific, Flower Drum Song, King and I, which are all Rodgers and Hammerstein, Pacific Overtures, which is Sondheim, and Miss Saigon, which is all about Vietnam and is written by a white guy. All of those are written by white guys. So, this is a big deal. That's why it's historically significant, and one thing that it kind of is mirroring for me is how we talked about in Black History Month, how There were a lot of the early black musicals that were written by black people, informed by a black perspective, that later on it was sort of a, do we really want to perform this, though? Which I'm like, it's historically significant. You gotta, for historical purposes, do that. And looking at the reviews for this, I have a feeling that Allegiance might end up in that category later.
Really?
Yes, because while it's historically significant, there are some things that they do in it that, specifically Frank Abe, who's a Japanese documentarian, he took some issue with some things, and in delving into it, I'm like, I can see why, because it's the same issue that some of us looking back on, like, In Dahomey, going, ugh, would be doing the same thing. So
I'm really now I'm really
So
I'm really curious now.
There's going to be stuff that's embellished in this. They kind of mix Heart Mountain, which was one of the internment camps, with the worst camp, which was Toole Lake. So they kind of merge those two into this camp, but then they have it taking place in Heart Mountain. And Frank Abe, who worked on the documentary Conscience and Constitution, wrote a really good article called Allegiance Uplifts by Doctoring Japanese American History for the Japanese American magazine Nichibei. Some of the stuff that's going to happen in this did not happen at all. Could not happen from what he was talking about. And I'm not going to, like, read you the whole thing, because, again, I don't want to spoil anything for you, but he does... It seems like this may do more harm than good, historically, like, from a perspective of an audience who's not in the know watching it, which I feel would be the same issue with an audience not in the know watching something like In Dahomey.
I wonder why Takei chose to go that route, though.
Well, he didn't write any of it.
I thought you said he did.
I thought he did, too, but no, he just was part of the... I'll get into who actually did the writing. He was part of the creation of it, but he didn't actually write any of the book or lyrics. It's just based on his recollections as a kid and then embellished by the writers.
When I always take a bit of issue when you're trying to convey something historically significant and people embellish too much, because there's a fine line between embellishment and lying.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to win over hearts and minds, lying is not the best course of action. And
I'll read a little bit of this article. So he says, the problem with the new musical Allegiance is not just historical accuracies, although it is riddled with them. It's the fabrication of events that were impossible within the reality of America's concentration camps. And he, like I said, I don't want to spoil plot points, but I agree with him on this one line. This show's makers freely acknowledge that Allegiance has as much to do with the camps as Miss Saigon did with the war in Vietnam. The historical events exist only as a backdrop for themes of love and hope, but audiences knew something about the Vietnam War. Audiences with no background must accept this action at face value, unaware that much of it was impossible under the reality of the time.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
And so it's one of those things where, like I said, Takei did not write the show. Because when I was first getting into this show, I thought he had more of a hand in writing it than he did. It was actually just music and lyrics by J. Kuo and the book by Marquesito, J. Kuo, and Lorenzo Tione. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I am so sorry. But it's not... I kind of am like, okay... I know that you had people involved who were who actually went through it, and I know that it's really... I know that there's a narrative that a lot of folks want to do in shows where they want to bring light to something, but it doesn't help if you're embellishing or if you're mixing things and if you're adding in elements that couldn't happen.
A small amount of embellishment is natural for anything that's entertainment, you know? It's just... that always happens. And I don't think that is overtly negative in and of itself, but that's one of those, you know, it's a gradient, you know? You can have minor embellishments that just kind of make certain aspects pop a little bit more, but if you embellish too much, then... if you have more embellishments than not, then you're lying.
Yeah, it's kind of like the way that I felt with Hidden Figures.
Yeah,
where
I was disappointed how
much of that was
not true.
Yeah, and so it's like
yeah, we have kick-ass black ladies who are human computers, but like the good job white guy parts of that movie were like not.
There's gonna be a moment with a relationship between an Asian man and a white woman, and something's gonna happen to the white woman. And the Asian man's going to be upset at his family for not doing more to protect this white woman. And I'm just kind of like...
like a white woman who's in the concentration camp with them?
Like as a nurse.
Oh.
But, yeah, it's something that I'm just kind of like... I'm hoping that I'm not disappointed by this show because I... followed this show when it was being conceived. And so,
kinky.
You know, the way that some theatrical productions are conceived can be quite beautiful. Turn on a little bit of Barry White. Turn the lights low.
Light some candles.
Yeah, light some candles.
Can't get enough of your musical, baby.
Having a lyricist and a composer getting together in a dark room, and what happens between them is just pure love. Sometimes, though, it's passion, it's a little bit messy. Looking at you, Andrew Lloyd Webber, in half of your shows. I'm gonna put that image into your brain.
Sometimes cocaine is involved.
Sometimes cocaine is involved. Sometimes your composer does dick dingers.
Hoovering schneef.
Hoovering schneef. Anyway, that's not the way that this is done, but I just couldn't help but do a conception joke with musicals.
I love you.
Maybe I'll try and put like some sort of smooth background music underneath. Anyway, so the first readings of this show were in July of 2009 at the Japanese American National Museum, and it featured George Takei and Lea Salonga. And they'll stay with the show all the way to Broadway. The workshop was held in 2011 at the Old Globe Theater in San Diego, and Takei funded the show with an Indiegogo campaign that raised over $158,000. Wow. The goal was $50,000. And this is where, like, I had heard of the show and was like, hell yeah, I'm gonna support it. I don't have any way to get out there, but yes. And the show's official premiere was in September of 2012 at the Old Globe, becoming its best-selling show in history and securing that sweet, sweet Broadway run.
Wow.
The Broadway run was 37 previews and 111 proper performances from October 2015, with the official opening in November, to February of 2016. A film production ran in theaters in 2017, and I believe that's the production we'll be seeing on Broadway On Demand today. As you could guess from the stuff with Frank Abe, the show's reception is mixed, with some critics criticizing the music, saying none of the melodies linger once the curtain has fallen and the lyrics pile on platitude and cliché. That's Alexis Solowski of The Guardian, and others criticizing story elements. The show needs a sharper emotional focus and a musical edge to match its bold subject. That's Anne Marie Welsh of the LA Times. USA Today says it's as corny as Kansas in August and as obvious as Lady Gaga on a red carpet. And later going on to say, but if you can make a critic who sneered in the first act leave the theater a little teary-eyed, you're probably doing something right. Deadline said that Allegiance was another significant addition to a Broadway season that offers an alternative take on the American experience, going on to say validation is hardly the worst crime a show can commit, and I think that's one reason the audience was cheering at the very moving end of the show. It's a triumph of a rare sort, shedding light in a dark corner of our history with uncommon generosity of spirit. So that's a pretty nice review. Then, Mark Kennedy of Associated Press says of the writing, both score and book, there are long periods of unrelenting misery with families ripped from their homes and subjected to brutality by vindictive white soldiers, and then there's a song about the joys of baseball that gives way to scenes with dangerous choking dust storms, a dead baby, and jail beatings. And then there's a happy sock hop.
What's a sock hop?
Let's go to the hop, oh baby, let's go to the hop. Oh baby, come on, let's go to the hop, like super white 50s.
Sorry, my brain, as you were singing that, my brain went, let's all go to the lobby, let's all go to the lobby. Would that be a version of sock hop?
No, sock hop is your, like, super, think a little bit Grease.
Okay.
That's a little bit of sock hop. That's where you get your doo-wop, you get your... Yeah. You get,
That's where you get your do-nope.
Your do-nope. Sock hop is the early 50s, very sanitized white rock and roll. Vulture states of the writing that too much of the show is devoted to far-fetched plot twists whose attempts to gin up excitement only look silly in the shadow of larger forces at work. So this one's a little bit polarizing, but I've still been dying to see it, so... Yeah, and honestly, I've been dying to see it a little bit more so than the next show we're seeing, and I've been dying to see that show, too. Just not spend hundreds of dollars on nosebleed tickets at the Eccles.
Yeah.
Or wait in a line for hours. So it did win the 2012 Craig Noel Award for Outstanding Musical, Best Featured Performance by a Male, and Best Orchestrations, but it did not win any Tonys.
Oh.
Yep. So, are you ready to see this possibly polarizing show?
Yeah, I'm very glad for that intro, that wonderful intro that you did.
Thanks.
Because knowing my dumb ass, I probably would have been in there like, wait, what?
Well, I would have too, because this isn't something that you really get in, but like you get a little bit of it in Utah history in 4th grade, because we had Topaz Mountain. But even then, it's just kind of like, this happened, look at the keys, look at the keys, look at the keys!
Yeah, it's the same thing that they like to do in history class, where anything that we've done as a country that was terrible, we kind of give you the cliff notes for it.
Yeah.
You know, they don't talk about how horrible it actually was, you know?
Yeah, and so with this, I'm just kind of like, because I guess one of the things that he talks about is that, like, there weren't firearms used inside of the gates of the camps. There weren't, I guess, some stuff that goes on, Frank Abe says this wouldn't have happened. Like, it wouldn't and couldn't happen because of the way that these things were set up. And so, while they were horrible and dehumanizing, this isn't telling the whole truth, and it makes me want to see his documentary now, because I'm kind of like, okay, maybe this needs to be paired together with... Because I always have teacher brain going, oh, turn this into a unit in a history class. Okay, pair Allegiance with Consciousness of the Constitution, or is it Consciousness of the Constitution? Let me scroll up in my notes. Consciousness and the Constitution, and, pair them together and have both visions of it and go, okay, this is a musical that was done by someone who was going off of an account versus someone else who's a documentarian who is going off of other accounts and doing a little bit more into the deep dive that documentarians have to do, and, compare and contrast and write out a 5-paragraph essay about the two.
I'm glad you don't make me do stuff like that.
Yeah, no. Worst I'll make you do is a Kahoot at the end of Black History Month every year.
That was fun.
I'm glad. So, yeah. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, then let's go and watch some Allegiance. Hey, Warren.
Hey, Kay.
Do you know what time it is?
Is it time to thank our favorite people in the whole world?
Heck yeah! Today, we would like to thank our stage crew sponsor, Jasmine Wu.
And our producer circle sponsors, Bianucci, Reagan, and Taylor Brandt.
Thank you all so much for your support of our show.
We truly appreciate it.
This is King Carouse from the Black History Buff podcast. And I know you're busy, but before you move on, I've got some questions for you. Do you know who the father of modern medicine is? Did you know that the most famous Russian writer of all time is black? Could you tell me the name of an Ethiopian samurai? Look, if you already know that black history is world history and can answer all of those questions, then please, just skip this message. If not, then hang on. In a world filled with false flags and fake news, the need for critical thinking has never been higher. And studying history helps us to understand today, avoid repeating the mistakes of the past, think critically and catch governments out in lies. It helps us to forecast the future, and it also helps us to solidify our cultural identity. Those are some useful skills to build, right? Being able to see clearly through the noisy, information-based society of today has gone from being a desirable skill to being an essential one. Now, I know what you're thinking. That all sounds amazing, but let's be honest, who's got time to do all that research? And well, that's why you need the Black History Buff podcast. Each week, I bring you a savory slice of history that's gonna challenge, enrich, and entertain you. The show will make you think, help you learn something new about your history, or the history of a friend or loved one, or at the very least, give you an interesting story to tell the in-laws when the conversation gets dry. So do yourself a favour and click the link or Google Black History Buff podcast, and please come check out the show. Alright, you can get back to scrolling now. See you later. Peace.
And now, the lights are going down and the music's starting back up, so let's head back to the second act of our show. Alright, babes, so, I have a feeling I know what you think of it, but what did you think of Allegiance?
Well, I didn't cry.
No, that was me, because of the Curse of the Witch.
It was heavy.
Yeah.
It was heavy and sad and, other adjectives that express, sorrow.
Yep. Yes, it was.
And I'm kind of a little disappointed because none of the music and none of the songs really stuck with me.
No, they didn't.
I felt like as far as the musical aspect of the musical, it was a little lackluster.
Yeah.
And it's another one of those situations of it's not the fault of anybody performing.
Yeah, no,
because
the performances were amazing.
Because they were all really good. It's just none of the songs I thought were particularly good. I mean, not that's the thing, is I don't want it to come across like I'm saying it's bad. It's a bad musical.
They weren't memorable.
They weren't memorable. None of them stuck with me. I'm not going to be humming anything.
No.
In fact, I don't think I can get any of the songs stuck in my head at all.
This is a measure for you. I don't have any of the songs in my head.
Yeah.
I had Mama Gimme Smack on the Asshole in my head for weeks.
Mama, give a smack on the asshole. And I feel bad because the story that it tells is a really emotionally powerful story, and the characters in this show really run the gamut. Like, because a lot of perspectives are covered in this show, which I like. I like that there's not a clear hero-villain dynamic on anything about it. It's very human in the way that it's presented, and everything that comes with that, that people see things differently, everybody lives by their own truth, and people are just trying to do what they can to get by in a dire situation.
Yeah, I do definitely agree with Frank Abe on his review of the show, though, that in merging the two camps, in merging Tule Lake, because I kept mispronouncing it, and Heart Mountain, in like having Heart Mountain be closer to Tule Lake, it does leave it open. And I was talking with Mama Kay about it too, because she watched the musical as well. It leaves it open for people who do want to go, oh, well, that's not true. Oh, well, that didn't happen. It leaves it open for that. And that's why you have to be so careful with stuff like this.
There's a lot to nitpick.
Yes.
Especially if you understand what actually happened to Japanese Americans who were at these internment camps.
Yeah.
I don't. I have a very uneducated white boy opinion about it because I knew that it existed, but I never wanted to learn about it too much because it hurt. And I didn't want to hurt. I just was kind of like, yeah, white people did a really bad thing to these innocent people because they were concerned about them being spies or this or that, and it's like, it's not okay.
Yeah, and I only knew a little bit about Topaz Mountain because that's here in Utah. And I knew that there were other quote-unquote relocation centers that were around the whole country, and I knew that George Takei was at one of them, and I can't remember which one I said he was at, but he was actually at Tule Lake, and I think that's why I guess that's why they put the show at Heart Mountain with his Tule Lake experiences. I'm like, if you're gonna go off of George Takei's experiences, put it where he was at, because they were different.
There are some criticisms to be made because at one, it takes place at Heart Mountain, and they use the threat of Tule Lake to like get
because it was
worse.
Where,
they say that it's a labor camp,
it was where they did send dissidents. Was to Tule Lake,
and so they use that as kind of the punishment. They're like the threat of punishment. If you don't cooperate with us, we'll send you to the worst location.
Yeah.
And so you have the show taking place at two different camps just for part of it. And it, I'm bothered that I do think that, just based on what you've told me and kind of what we were watching, that too many creative liberties were taken with the source material, which does...
I feel like it needed another rewrite.
You could have still told a similarly powerful story, but made it a little bit more factually accurate, because it's... Yeah, like kind of what we're talking about, like we'll get into a little bit more, and I'm going to go off of my, like I said, my overall knowledge about what happened to them is lacking, so I'm going to be going off of entirely just what the musical presented. And
with the way that the musical presents it, for people listening, keep in mind that they did take liberties with this, so it's not, like my mom even was saying, she's like, this felt like they were trying to sugarcoat this a little bit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because Topaz was horrible, and Tule Lake was horrible.
Wow.
Those were the two worst. I think those were the two. I know that Tule Lake was one of the worst ones, and was like it was the most controversial out of all of them. And Heart Mountain, like, they were all supposed to be quote unquote self-sufficient, but they were in these shitty areas that you can't grow shit. But Topaz, they were able to grow stuff at Topaz Mountain. Not a lot of food, but they were able to sustain themselves. But it's still like you had them in super horrible climates, and you had the public latrines, like, that was real. And the lice-covered blankets and all of that was real, but then there was the difference between all the different areas. And I feel like this would have been... It would have been better had they gone, we have George Takei's experiences, let's have this set at Tule Lake, and to make it even more powerful, perspective of a kid. That would have been...
That could have...
It would have made white audiences uncomfortable, but
I think
kind of needs it.
I think the reason that they kind of went the route that they did is because they wanted to show the extent that a lot of the Japanese Americans who enlisted...
Yeah.
Because they in the course of the show, I don't know how truthful it is, but it sounds... I would not put it past our government to do that.
Oh, that was 100% truthful what they did.
That they basically just put them on suicide missions.
That was absolute fucking bullshit that they did that.
Prove how much you are loyal to America, and we're gonna put you in the more dangerous missions that we...
The things that our government has done to people of color, especially military-related, makes me very angry. I can rant for hours on that. And especially once you return home, what they did to a lot of folks. But that's me coming from a black perspective of like, yeah, they lynched us as soon as we got home. No heroes welcome there. So yeah, it's one of those things that, like, the things that they do that are accurate are done well, but then the things that they do that aren't take you out of it.
One thing I will say, I think my favorite part of this entire show, though, I feel like the lighting, set design, and music were amazing.
Those are the best parts.
Were amazing. You have parts where they'll have more traditional Japanese music and scenery and stuff like that. It's really, really well done.
Yeah.
The tricks that they do with lighting and the backgrounds, because the way that they have backgrounds set up is that it's like, I can't remember what the name of it is in Japanese culture, where they have like the sliding doors,
panels.
The panels. So they have the sets kind of like that with these panels, and they're able to slide the panels to create different sets rather quickly, and it was really well done.
Yeah.
But they also have the lighting that they're kind of projecting on these panels to create different types of backgrounds.
Yeah.
And the combination of the lighting and the sets and the music was just really, really good. And especially the way that they were able to incorporate multiple scenes that took place, in different parts of the country or even different parts of the world, with the different panels and the different lighting, but still having these events going on. Visually, it was very, very impressive. It was quite the spectacle. I just wish that the songs were stronger. At least that was the thing, is like I had mentioned before, I really didn't care for the songs. The music was good. Like, the music sounded nice, but the songs and the lyrics I didn't find to be catchy or engaging, and like I said, I don't think I could really sing anything, hum anything.
The first act finale reminded me of Les Mis a little bit with One Day More. And it's something that I was like, wow, I forgot that for a period of time in musical theater, there have been people trying to emulate One Day More, which is emulating the first act finale of West Side Story.
Oh, is it? Okay.
It is. It kind of is. And like, One Day More is just a little bit more extravagant and hopeful, whereas the... and I don't know why I forgot the name of the first act finale of West Side Story, but that is a little bit more like tension building, so that once Riff and Bernardo get killed, it just sort of kind of takes all the air out of it and makes you go, oh. Whereas One Day More and in this Resist are very much like, yeah, we're gonna fight, power to the people, yeah.
Yeah.
That's another thing that the historian took issue with, was the Heart Mountain Fair Play Committee that springs up later in the show. That's the Resistors, because he's like, that's not how it happened.
Yeah, my knowledge, like I said, my knowledge of the atrocity is not what it should be. Okay,
let's start.
So, you had mentioned before, I think in the beginning, that we thought this was the 2012 production.
Yeah,
and it's the 2016 production.
Yes,
they list it at the beginning. They say, oh, this location, this year, da da da. So we got that. So this was done in 2016. And I will say, I forgot what a good actor George Takei is.
Right?
He was such a joy in this. George Takei plays two people in this. He plays the grandfather, and he also plays the older version of the main character. And so it's great to watch him play those two different characters, because they're very different.
Yes.
And he does a great job. He just... Okay. So, curtain up, and we see George Takei... Sam Kimura, wearing his army uniform and curmudgeonly exclaiming that it still fits, when the door buzzes and a woman informs Sam that his sister, Kei, no relation, that his sister, Kei, Kei, and
not just K.
Yeah. Because he goes by Sam, but I think his name is Samu. Osamu, yeah. So, they all have Americanized versions of their Japanese names, and I can't remember what Kei's name is.
I think it was Keiko, maybe?
That might be right, Keiko.
Yeah.
But, so, anyway, so you got that. That his sister Kei has passed away, and she left him an envelope. Sam is like, I haven't seen my sister in 50 years. I don't want anything from her. The woman goes to walk away, and Sam says, what's in the envelope? I don't know, the woman replies, and hands the envelope to Sam. The woman tells Sam that his sister's service is at 3 p.m. up on Nob Hill, and walks away. Kei's ghost, again, you're alive. Kei's ghost seems to be haunting Sam as the two have a brief argument in which Sam is like, you finally have peace, couldn't you leave me alone? And the maybe ghost is like, there's still a chance for forgiveness, Sam. Sam sees the silhouette of his younger self, and he's like, I'm not that kid anymore. And the scene changes to young Sam, who is back from college and excited to see his big sister. Sam's father is like, good, you're back. You can help on the farm until you go to law school. So the way that they this entire show is done from the perspective of a flashback.
Yeah.
So older Sam is wearing his army uniform and just kind of has a trip down memory lane. And when he finds out that his sister's dead, you see her actress in the back, kind of in this shadow thing, and I don't know what the fuck is going on with old Sam. Is he not right in the head? Because he has a full-on conversation with his sister who's not there.
Like I said, this could have done with another rewrite.
If you're taking it just in the universe that the musical is taking place in, Sam has a few screws loose. Because it's not like he's remembering things his sister has said to him or anything like that. He is having full-on fucking conversations with people who are not there.
It reminds me of Sunday in the Park with George at the end.
That is an excellent comparison. That is an excellent comparison. It's quite similar to that.
Oh my god, this show is just an amalgamation of different shows.
Maybe, art imitates art. People draw inspiration from multiple things.
Yeah.
Who knows?
It's just where I can pinpoint specific scenes and specific shows.
Inspirations that informed how that scene developed, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we do the flashback to Sam. He's just come home from graduating college, and his father and everybody I should say the father and grandfather have Japanese accents, and there's lots of Japanese accents. To not be offensive, I am not going to do any Japanese accents.
Thank you for not doing any Japanese accents that they do.
So
thank you for that.
And I want to, and not because I kind of want to, but I won't. Just because I mimic, and that's just...
Yeah, you
it would not come from a place of...
You have a little bit of echolalia like I do, so...
Yes. It would come from a place of just trying to represent what I watched and recreate it. It would not come from a place of trying to be a racist asshole, but I think that's how it would be received.
So I am glad that you are tamping down the echolalia for us.
And I didn't know that there was a word for it, so thank you, Kay.
Yep. I'm on the spectrum, so I do that. You have watched that.
I do it too. Maybe maybe I'm on the spectrum. Okay. So yeah, Sammy's back from law school. He's back from college, and his father's like, "Good, you're back. You can help on the farm until you go to law school." And he sees his father talking to a neighbor who's like, "Yeah, I'll take 10 bushels of artichokes," you know. And as soon as his father sees his son, he just hands him the bushel, and he goes, "Go get 10 bushels of artichokes," you know. I kind of did it a little bit there. Shit. Sam and Kay have their catching up moment and then start to get ready for some festival, which I'm not sure what it is, but it's about wishes. Sam, and they're like tying wishes to a tree or something like that.
On a wishing tree.
On a wishing tree. And Sam says he wishes for a little house by the ocean for his sister, something, you know, remote and personal that she can make her own, because I guess she just likes to have time to herself. She does mention later that she's a stay-at-home with a good book kind of gal.
Yeah, and she basically raised Sammy.
That, you know, we'll get into that. Kay wishes for great journeys and adventures for her brother until he misses home. So it's like she knows that her brother is much more extroverted and wants to go out and see things and do stuff. So I like that her wish was, I want him to have all these grand adventures until he's done adventuring and ready to come home and settle down, basically. Yeah. So I thought that was actually quite sweet. They reminisce about their mother, who by context clues is dead and has been for some time. Their mother was the heartbeat of every gathering, and it seems like her death is probably why their father is such a hard-ass now. After the festival, Sam's father, and that festival scene was really nice. Like I
liked that scene. The
dancing and choreography. That's another thing I forgot to mention. The dancing and choreography in this is really good.
Yeah.
I know they're completely different cultures, but I did have some remembrance of Flower Drum Song, the revival version.
Yeah.
And I mean, the cultures are different, but they do have some overlap. So I don't think it's racist for me to be saying that.
It's kind of like you'll have overlaps of European cultures, and you'll have overlaps of
African cultures too.
Yeah, so it makes sense for there to be an overlap because of proximity.
Yeah, and so I did really like the choreography and dancing in that. And that festival scene, they have, you know, people are in kimonos and stuff, and just having a good time. It's a party, you know, very much a Japanese culture event, and it just seems like everybody in California or wherever they're living. Yeah, it's California.
Yeah, it's California.
Is there. After the festival, Sam's father is like, "Did you get a letter from law school?" And Sam hands his father the letter. His father reads it eagerly, but is quickly disappointed and hands it back, saying, "Perhaps I expected too much from you." Sam is like, "Maybe I'm not cut out for law school. Kay was always the A student." A-, father and sister say in unison. The father scolds his son, saying that he grew this ground from nothing so that his children could have a better life here, in America. And he tells his son he will study twice as hard and reapply for law school again. We hear the sounds of planes and bombs, and we hear Roosevelt's speech about Japan attacking Pearl Harbor. And again, this is basically right after he tells his son, you're going to study twice as hard for law school. Like yeah. And then it's interesting how they do some scene transitions in this, because like when his father was scolding his son, it just seemed like they were just at the farm.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you see the set darken and you hear the planes, and then all of a sudden they're just at home, like hearing the attack on Pearl Harbor. So like the way that it transitions on some stuff is kind of odd.
The transitions were clunky. Like not the stage crew transitions, those were fine, but like the written in transitions, it would be like the tonal shifts were a little bit too quick. And you can't, it's too jarring to do that.
Yeah.
I think that, like I keep saying, this needed another rewrite.
Yeah, I think in a few years, maybe a revival would be...
A revival might be a good idea for this.
Okay, so we hear the sounds of planes and bombs, and we hear Roosevelt's speech about Japan attacking Pearl Harbor. The family is around the kitchen table, suddenly, talking about how this is going to be very bad for all Japanese people in America. Sam is like, we need to put up our American flag so people know that we are patriots. But his father is like, do nothing to draw attention to us. We then get a song about not fighting the storm, and we see a representative from the Japanese American Citizen League, which, so the JACL, I will refer to it as Jackal, because that's going to help. The Jackal says they will do everything they can to fight for the rights of Americans of Japanese descent. The song goes on, and we see the Jackal's argument devolve to, we will put ourselves in cages to show our patriotism. This scene, a lot happens in this scene when they say the don't fight the storm kind of thing, because, you know, they're around the radio listening to what's going on. There's arguments in the family because Sammy, the son, is like, no, we need to draw attention to ourselves and say, hey, we are Americans, we are patriots, we are not part of, you know, the Japanese Empire. And his father makes a comment about, I think it was World War I, there was a German shopkeeper who was assaulted and had his store burned down. And so he's like, just seeing that happening to them because of what's going on. And so he's like, you know, do not draw attention to us, do not do anything, we are going to keep our heads down, we are going to, you know, just, that's kind of what he wants to do. And
there would be no way to win in this situation.
There would be no way. I side a little bit more with Sammy in terms of, if I was in that situation, that's what I'd probably try to do. But at the same time, we do see in the show that when he does that, just pretty much every white American is like, yeah, go fuck yourself. Like, they're still not... Yeah. It's falling on deaf ears. Yeah. Especially because Sammy talks about, oh, you know, I want to enlist. I will show my patriotism. I will join the army. I will help fight. And they're like, no, you can't join. Yeah. Kind of thing. Because you're Japanese, you know? That garbage. And then when we see the Japanese American Citizens League guy, I don't remember what his name is, but he was a real person.
Yes, he was. His name was like...
I want to say his first name was Mike.
Mike Masaoka.
So I missed a lot of names in this because, like, I don't have a name for the father, I don't have a name for the grandfather. I didn't have a name for Mike. He's just the JACL guy in all my notes. If I'm with it enough, I will try to refer to him as Mike, but he might just be Jackal because I was not a huge fan of him. Personally, like, I know that he was doing what he could, but at the same time, the misinformation presented by him could not have been good. Could not have been good.
And that's why I really want to see this Conscience and the Constitution documentary by Frank Abe, because that makes me go, okay, I want to know, because his documentary... know more of the truth. Yeah, his documentary, I guess, was about Frank Abe, who was a real person who ran the resistance, and Mike Masaoka. And they're two different sides. And Frank Abe was at Heart Mountain, so he's a real person as well.
So Frankie that we meet later.
Yes, Frankie that we meet later is a real person. Okay. But they change him a bit to dramatize things and make things...
They kind of make him less significant than it sounds like he actually was.
Yeah, and they make... I agree with a lot of what Frank Abe says, where it's like, to make the conflict that happens in this happen, they had to take so many liberties with it.
It kind of makes me think that we're running in the same situation we had with
friggin' Evita, where it's like, if you're doing something based on history...
talking about the musical, but the problem with the musical is that it takes a lot of liberties with history, and you don't want to misrepresent people who actually existed based on their fictional actions and fictional words that were in a musical.
And I think that's why Ragtime did a better job, is because they didn't try to frame too much around something that actually happened.
That's fair. It was a little bit more intimate.
Yes.
Well, actually, not a little bit. It was a lot more intimate.
Yeah.
Whereas this has a much larger scope. It's not focusing on just one group of people. It's focusing on a large group of people, in this whole camp.
Because it takes it, like, as we say that Sammy is the main character, he kind of isn't, but he is. Because, like, I had a hard time figuring out who I was supposed to be focusing on because of the I Want songs from some of the characters and stuff that I was like, wait, am I supposed to be focusing on Kay? Or, no, am I supposed to be focusing on Frankie? Who am I?
What is interesting?
Who is my audience surrogate?
Part of that is I think they're trying to show all the different viewpoints of the people who were going through this. But in the context of the musical, it is a little disjointed because we open it up with old Sammy, who's then reliving his experiences in World War II in this concentration camp. But it follows a lot of other people, too. So at the same time, it's like, how the fuck did Sammy know what his sister was doing?
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the problem with this. If they would have, like, that's where I sit here and go, I would have probably enjoyed it more. Like, the story is okay in this. But if the story had, like, been truly autobiographical on George Takei, we would have had one single point to focus on, who's a child living through this, and then you can see, because children have a little bit more of a broader scope that they're seeing, because people will say things in front of children that we retain later in life, and things will happen in front of kids that they're constantly taking in information, and that's why kids are such a good audience surrogate. It bothers me when you don't have an audience surrogate in a show sometimes.
Yeah, so that's where some of the criticism does come in, the disjointed vibe that you get from the show.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway.
Back to the plot summary.
Father's Farm, oh Jesus, that's right. So we were talking about Jackal and how his argument was, I will do everything that I possibly can to protect the rights of Japanese American citizens, and then it goes into
now you're going in cages.
Yeah, our contribution to the war effort will be to put ourselves in prison to show that we're loyal, and it's such a fucked up thing that happened.
Yeah.
Father's Farm and all their belongings get sold for next to nothing because they have no choice and are being forcibly relocated to Heart Mountain. This scene really sucks because the guy that was buying artichokes from the father at the beginning, like when Sam first came home from college, he's then like, oh, I'll take all this, I'll give you $2,000 for it, kind of thing. He's like, but this is easily worth $20,000, like all of this stuff. And he's like, well, you take it or leave it, kind of thing. He's like, we've been neighbors for 20 years. Like like, come on. And the guy's like, do you want it or not? Like the guy. I was like, wow, you fucking asshole. Like, he just took advantage of this horrible situation, and there was no kinship, there was no neighborly love at all. And you see this neighbor's interaction with the family, and it's like, he's a family friend. Like, and then shit hits the fan, and he's like, oh, you Jap. Like, he's just shitty.
Yeah, it's something that, unfortunately, as minorities, we sometimes run into. When shit hits the fan, you find out who your real friends are, kind of thing. Yeah, as you've seen with me, with half of my family, it's like, oh, or I guess a quarter of my family. It's like, oh, you're...
I see what you really think.
Yeah, I see what you really think of me. Great.
Yeah. Okay, so father gets cheated out of all of his stuff because he has no choice. The family arrives fresh off the train and are told to split up. Men on the right, women on the left, or it might have been switched, I don't remember. They're told to strip down to their underwear for medical examination. And a Japanese woman starts yelling in Japanese and sobbing, and Sam tries to explain that these women can't undress in front of everyone, and gets told to shut up and is shoved to the ground by a soldier at gunpoint. The nurse reiterates to the prisoners to strip down and prepare for examination. And it's like when they're getting on the train, it's really messed up. Like there's a woman with a baby and she's got a carriage, and the guy says, you can't take the carriage, just baggage only kind of thing. So she's got to carry the baby, and like it's just it's fucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fucked up. Everyone is in their new houses, and it's super shitty and dirty. People are like, where are the bathrooms? Where do we go to get food? And they get explained that there are community toilets, and just, yeah, some people start to break down saying that they can't do this and that they want to go home. Kay starts to sing, we will carry on, and all the prisoners are like, we will endure, we will carry on.
Yeah.
Like the son is getting upset and stuff, and the grandfather is telling him, we will endure. He's like saying, basically he's like telling him, man up, like we will get through this, we will be strong. And that's kind of when they go into their shit sucks, but we'll band together, we'll get through this, that's their empowerment song. The song ends and people start going about their business. Sam puts up a pole, and his grandfather wants to hang up wind chimes, but Private First Class Asshole is like, what's that? Take it down! Sam is able to get the guard to piss off when he's like, how about we hang up this flag? American, of course. With your permission, of course, sir. The guard is like, now we're talking, and walks off. Sam's father chews him out for drawing attention to them and for not knowing his place. Sam is like, my place is in the army. I'll go nuts doing nothing. His father is like, then be useful. I'm trying, replies Sam. But his father is like, no, you're trying to be a big man, and you're going to get us all in more trouble. Sam stomps off, saying that he needs some fresh air. And grandfather hangs up the wind chimes, saying that it looks like America, sounds like Japan. And God damn it, George Takei is so good in this.
I love him.
I really like the act. That's the thing. I really like the actors. The actors all do a really, really, really good job, and I feel bad that I didn't like the show more.
Yeah. Well, like I'm sitting here like, I love Lea Salonga, and she's amazing in this, and I had a crush on her ever since she was the voice of Jasmine and the voice of Mulan. So.
Yeah, mutual crush there.
Yeah.
The actor who plays Sammy did a really good job as well, but I don't know, George Takei as the grandfather was so great.
He stole the show. He
was so great. All of his stuff, and of course he's got a very, very heavy Japanese accent, and he's talking, and he's he's so great. Sam goes into his song about what makes a man is his dignity and what he will fight for. During the song, Private First Class Asshole confiscates the flag and the wind chimes, shooting a dirty look at the grandfather. Sam's song ends, and we see grandfather and Kay in their room, and a man that was nice to Kay earlier comes in. So there's a thing I forgot to mention is when they first get off the train, Kay is like, oh, can we get some water for my grandfather? Asking the guard, and the guard's like, women on the left, men on the right, just holding his rifle, being a dick. And this guy comes up and he's like, hey, I have some water, for your grandfather. Gives her a canteen. She's like, oh, thank you, and they go their separate ways and stuff. And
I will read this thing that he talks about with regards to the opening scenes not opening, but the first scenes in the camp. He says that camp was degrading, and this is Abe again. Camp was degrading and dehumanizing, but this is fantasy that stirs emotion at the expense of fact. The processing of new arrivals is staged to evoke the ghoulish selection process of Nazi gas chambers. Camp-wide loudspeakers were a feature of MASH, not Heart Mountain. Incarcerees only had to roll up their sleeves to receive inoculations after arrival. The curfew existed on the West Coast before eviction, not after removal to camp. Where would you go? And it's one of those things where it's like...
You still could have done that.
Yeah, you could have done that and kept it accurate so that...
You still could have had the degrading and dehumanizing aspect of it without taking so many liberties that you're lying.
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with material this heavy and historically important.
Yeah, and material that, because that some white supremacist asshole would pick this apart to say that none of it happened. instead of
I could see that.
parts of it. Because I see that so much with black stuff, where if we have just one thing wrong,
It invalidates
it
everything.
invalidates the whole damn thing.
That's the...
And I think that's why I get angry and hold shows like this to such a high standard with fact, because I'm like, no, if you get one thing wrong, I mean, I've been getting in arguments with people lately about slavery.
Okay, it wasn't that bad. Come on. They got a free trip to America.
Just because Roots got one thing wrong, suddenly that makes everything wrong. And
suddenly
I'm like, fuck you!
Suddenly every single master was a great guy.
Exactly. So I'm like, oh, hell no. You
Yeah.
gotta hold this to a high standard. Anyway, that's my soapbox on why this should have been more... They should have consulted, like... They should have made sure, as they were doing this, that they kept consulting as they were writing.
Yeah, I feel like they need to have... What would have been really good is to have a historian on the writing staff, or at least somebody who is reading it.
Hire a dramaturg.
Dramaturg?
They're the people who kind of keep things historically accurate. And, like, they provide the context for actors. And they're one of the most important people that you can have on a period show.
Agreed.
One of the most important people.
Agreed. Okay. So, Sam's song ends, and we see Grandfather and Kay in their room.
Mm-hmm.
And the man from earlier with the canteen comes in, and Grandfather is playing with a deck of cards and tries to do a magic trick, but fails. Like, he fans out the cards, has the guy pick one, shuffles it back in, he's like, aha, this is your card. And he's like, nope, kind of thing. And so Grandpa fails with his magic trick. The man is trying to tell Kay, the man is talking to Kay and introduces himself as Frankie. We learned
Originally, he was odd.
Yeah, when they first meet, he said, oh, you're even, I'm odd, like numbers, you know, kind of thing. And she calls him Mr. Odd or something like that. And he goes, it's Frankie. And yeah, anyway. We learned that Frankie was going to law school before being relocated, and that his family had a Japanese language class and were arrested the day after Pearl Harbor. Kay invites Frankie to have supper with them, and Grandfather tries to pull off his magic trick again by pulling out a different card, being like, and Frankie's like, yeah! And then Grandpa's super excited, and he looks at Kay, and he's like, no.
Yeah.
So Grandpa fails his magic trick again, although Frankie humors the old man and is like, yep, that's my card. And Grandfather leaves thinking that he pulled off his magic trick, as they're kind of all going to supper together. Sam goes to the nurse to get some medicine for his grandfather who has a cough, and he sees Private Asshole getting cough syrup from the nurse and being a creepy creep with the nurse. Just because, like, he's coughing or whatever, and the woman's like, oh, you'll get used to the dust. I'm from Nebraska. Dust is a food group there.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And she goes, here, take this. And the soldier's like, don't you want to listen to my chest? And she's like, no. You're relieved.
The
Private.
dust is one of the things that is... Because everybody that was relocated... or not everybody, but a lot of them that were relocated, the vast majority came from, like, San Francisco and stuff, which is more humid. You take someone who's used to a humid climate and move them to a dry climate, they're not going to acclimate as well. And so that's part of where the choking on dust, it's like, yeah, your lungs aren't used to this. So
yeah, the coughing.
That is an accuracy right there.
I did not even think about that, so thank you for that.
I looked that up as more historical. I'm dramaturging you is what I'm doing.
The nurse dismisses the soldier, and Sam is like, hey, my grandfather is sick. Can I get some medicine? And the nurse is like, nope, only for soldiers. Which, was that a thing? Like, you can't put people, you can't relocate people and not, like, have shit for them. You're just putting them in a pen to die.
Yeah, and I am not sure.
Okay, anyway. Nope, just for soldiers. Sam tries to say that he wanted to enlist, but they wouldn't let him because he's Japanese. So he's basically a would-have-been soldier, so can he please have some medicine? The two have a song, and Sam eventually wears down the nurse, who we learn is named Hannah. And she does give him some cough syrup, saying, don't tell anybody you got this from me, and Sam leaves. And that's kind of where we get these scenes are back to back where Frankie is talking to Kay and Sam is talking to Hannah. So you see these are going to be the two relationship groups that we see. And so you kind of get the first real interactions where, like, when Frankie and Kay first meet each other, it's like, oh, you're nice, you know, hey, do you want to have food with us? And then Sam meets Hannah, and it's a little bit of a conflict because the nurse has the song about, oh, they said that the Japanese are quiet and reserved and they won't make a fuss, you know, and Sam's like, I gotta figure out a way to get in, you know, to get what I need. And the scene changes to Mike, the jackal guy, who is telling a dude in Washington that people are still being held prisoner, and what are the politicians doing to fix it? The guy makes him read a bullshit statement saying that all the Japanese have a clean place to live, and they're totally not prisoners, and that they're doing all sorts of fun stuff. He's saying, like, they're engaging in the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and having these fun Americanizing activities and stuff like that, just flat out lying about the state of the people being in these internment camps.
Like, sure, they were allowed to enter in crops to state fairs, like at Millard County State Fair here in Utah. Whoop-de-fucking-do. They're in a fucking camp.
Whoop-de-fucking-do.
I just,
yeah, seriously.
They're fucking human beings.
After the total bullshit speech, the jackal guy is on the call with his brother, who is being held at a horse track with 10,000 other people, and that their mother is sleeping in a horse stall. The jackal guy is like, I think I might be able to get us both enlisted in the army. What will that do? Replies his brother. It will show that we're loyal, like any other American. And, yeah.
And he does say about Mike Masaoka that this is the thing that the show gets right. Is he originally in the 2012 tryout, I guess he had a song and dance number that was Better Americans in Greater America, and it's gone now. He was no longer a caricature, and they basically use his own words. And to quote Abe, by using his actual words, more or less, we begin to see the false distinctions between loyal and disloyal that the wartime government forced upon Japanese America with help from JACL, and which we then internalized among ourselves. He does say, though, the show, however, does not pursue this more interesting idea. Actor Greg Watanabe did his homework and captures Masaoka's earnest surrender of civil rights with gravitas and flashes of stubborn defiance.
Well put. And I give Jackal Guy a hard time in this, but it's... And I know that people do the best that they can in these really hard situations, and he has a speech later at the end that we'll talk about, where he kind of is defending his actions, and it's just one of those things that's like, put in that situation, who knows how any of us would behave. You know, it's easy to talk a big game like, oh, I would oppose, I would resist, but when you're concerned for the well-being of your family and other stuff, it's like, people will compromise their values. The scene changes to the prisoners at Heart Mountain, and they're all airing their grievances to one another about the poor living conditions. Sam is creating a petition to notify the military of all the horrible shit going on, like tainted water, mattresses filled with fleas, and other horrible shit. He tells everyone that they will have to appear united, otherwise they won't get anywhere. And they all start to sing and dance about all the different ways to make this place better, like, oh, you know, but just basically they're just talking about everything that they want to make this place feel more like a home. Yeah. You know, things that they miss from, you know, because one woman, she's like, oh, I want a garden because I used to grow so many flowers, you know, and stuff like that. And so they're singing about all the things they want that would make this place better, including baseball.
And that goes nowhere.
I just... this scene... I think out of all the... songs, this one was my least favorite, because it starts out not bad, but then they just go into baseball, and it's obsessed about baseball for, like, the latter half of the song.
And the whole time I'm going, okay, so is that going to be a thing that they do to sort of subtly resist? Nope. They never talk about baseball again.
The song ends, and we see Nurse Hannah approaching the prisoners. Sammy makes eyes with her, and Kay is like, I disapprove. And Sammy is like, yeah, well, I disapprove of you and that Frankie guy. And the siblings sort of give each other grief about that. Because Sammy doesn't like... They don't have any contention yet, I think that Sammy just doesn't like Kay because he's protective of his... Or doesn't like Frankie because he's protective of his sister.
Yeah.
Which, as a brother, totally get that. Totally get that. It's just defensive just because you care about somebody else, and you're like, who is this person? So I get that.
Who the hell are you?
Exactly.
Get away.
And, so we cut to Sammy helping Nurse Hannah trying to treat people with her lack of supplies. And Sammy is like, I'll go check and see if the supply trucks are here, and runs off. He comes back shortly later with like 2 tiny boxes of medical supplies, saying this is all that they had. And Private First Class Assface is like, hey, what are you doing? And Hannah tries to explain to him that explain to the soldier that Sammy is helping her. And the soldier is like, Sammy, huh? It's a good thing you're a nurse because you have yellow fever. Sammy is like, hey dude, chill. And the soldier pulls a gun on him. Hannah talks down the soldier, who stomps off.
That's another thing. They wouldn't have had guns, according to Frank Abe.
Yeah, not inside
the perimeter. And in fact, they weren't... He says that they weren't patrolling anywhere near the perimeter. Like, they were... You would have their area, the guard area, then like several hundred feet, barbed wire, then the camp. So the watchtowers are just past the barbed wire. They weren't going in, according to Abe.
Which he did his research.
Yeah, he did. He's a historian.
So I will agree with him on that.
I will default on the historian.
Yeah, seriously.
Rather than the people going, "Oh, this is like Miss Saigon," which that's not a compliment.
Okay. So Soldier Boy stomps off after Hannah talks him down after he pulls a gun on Sammy. Everyone disbands from the nurse's office, and Hannah sings about how she's doing her best to follow the rules, even if they're stupid-ass rules that she can't elect to ignore. Because basically, she has limited supplies, and they're talking about, like, you can't even get us aspirin. Like, you're the nurse, you're supposed to be here to help us, but you are useless, you can barely do anything. She's, like, one of the things, like, one of the guys is sick, and she's saying, he needs to drink water, and they're like, the water's tainted! She's like, I know, I've submitted a report, and stuff like this, and so I feel bad for the nurse, because she's doing her best to help these people.
Yeah.
And she's just not given supplies or resources, or even listened to, more or less, because the military is treating these people like they're not people.
Yep.
Like they're enemies, you know? We then see the Jackal guy being like, motherfucker, I've submitted this same paper 3 times. People in these camps need resources. And the politician douchebag is like, who doesn't? There's a war on, exclaims the political ass clown. Then the let us serve is, what Mike says. Give us our segregated unit like the black soldiers. Send us to dangerous missions. Whatever it takes to change the government's perspective of us. The politician guy is like, how do we separate the loyal ones from the troublemakers? We'll find a way, says Mike. Oh, and by the way, there is a funeral going on in the background of this scene because the woman who has the baby that went to the camp, the baby fucking died because they couldn't get medicine for the baby.
Yep.
And so while Mike Jackal is talking to the politician, we just see this funeral procession in the back, and it's really sad and somber, and they're carrying this tiny box holding the dead baby and crying over it, and it's just like, fuck. Back at Heart Mountain, the prisoners are being required to fill out a questionnaire with such questions like, have you ever committed a crime? Would you enlist in the armed forces? Would you swear loyalty to America?
And that is true. That is a true questionnaire that happened.
Yeah, and in that one, they say, would you swear loyalty to America and disavow any and all relation with the Emperor of Japan or the Empire of Japan, basically, just that kind of stuff. And it's really fucked up, and I hate the fact that I will say that I can see a little bit of the perspective of just being like, I don't know. It's fucked up. Okay.
Yeah.
People are split on the questionnaire because, obvious reasons. They locked them up, destroyed their lives, treated them like animals, then asked them to swear loyalty. Sammy's father is pissed and sings about how they took their lives from them, but they can't take his honor. And Sammy is like, I would rather fight than be here. The scene goes to some of the other prisoners talking about how the questionnaire is bullshit, and that they heard if you don't answer right, they'll send you to a hard labor camp instead. Frankie is walking by, and they're like, hey, Frankie, how are you handling this questionnaire? Frankie is like, want to find out? Come to the dance that apparently we're throwing in this toilet bowl. So they just... I know that they talked about in the baseball song area about, like, things to do to make this place better, and they're like, oh, we could have a dance. But they never, like, settle on, yeah, let's do a dance. They're just throwing out things that they could do. And then all of a sudden, there's a fucking dance going on, and they're like, hey, come to the shindig.
It's because they can't pick how they're going to portray stuff in history with this. Because the two writers were not historians, and were not people who experienced this. And I guess George Takei, looking through this article, also worked on the documentary. Like, he did not have anything to do with writing for this musical, but he did help with Conscience and the Constitution.
They probably could have done with asking him a few fucking questions and taking his input. But who knows? He was also a little kid, so...
Yeah.
Anyways.
And when you're a kid, it is very different. And then you kind of have to go by the stories to contextualize memories that you have.
Yeah, exactly, because you don't necessarily understand all of what's going on because you're a fucking kid.
Yes. And so I sit here and I'm like, meh.
Yeah.
They needed a dramaturg.
They probably did. We then see the nurse in her office listening to the radio, which is playing a slow dance song. She starts to dance with the IV stand, and Sammy is like, your dance partner is a little stiff.
Can I say that the singer's voice over the radio kind of drove me nuts, because he had a very pop sound to his voice that would not have happened in a singing voice from the 40s, and it took me out for a minute there.
And people listening for the first time can see which one of us is musically challenged, because that did not even fucking register with me.
Because later they actually do have the group of men singing over the radio like a trio, and they very much 40s-ize their voice, and they don't do that with this guy. And it's like, no, you've got to... There are ways that people sang, and this is not... You don't have the Josh Groban voice in the 40s. You don't have the Josh Groban voice in the 40s. That wasn't a thing.
And because the way that they do it in this scene is Hannah's in her office and she's sewing something. She's either patching something up or what. She's just sewing. And they have a person actually there on set standing, and they have him cast in such a light that he's kind of dark. You can mostly just kind of make out a silhouette, and he's singing, and that's supposed to imply that he's the person who's singing over the radio. He's not actually there, but that's what she's listening to over the radio. And then she's dancing with the IV stand, and Sammy comes in, and, oh, your dance partner's a little stiff. Ha 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 ha. Hannah is like, why aren't you at the dance with the others? He's like, well, I was on my way. He popped down, I was on my way, but I thought I'd stop by and say hi, kind of thing. He plops down and starts talking to Hannah, asking if she thinks enlisting is a good idea. She says yes, and the two start to talk a bit. Sam says that his mother died giving birth to him, which is somehow his fault. And because he's kind of grieving, because like he wants to enlist, but my father thinks it's a bad idea, kind of thing. And then he talks about, just like all my ideas, my father always thinks that what I want to do is bad.
Yeah.
And then that's when he reveals that his mother died during childbirth, and that's somehow his fault too. And he's always lived with this feeling that he's just a disappointment to his father because, and that it's really hard. That's
and this
really
sows
hard.
The seeds for me to say, fuck you, or fuck you, play.
Yeah, that's really hard. Hannah and Sammy start dancing in her office, and the two of them do some face touching. I'm sure their budding relationship will end well. Especially because we totally saw Hannah at the very beginning with old Sammy. So we know that they're going to have a happy, long, wonderful relationship. Anyways, at the dance, it's a shindig. It's a swinging shindig, and everyone seems to be having a good time. Frankie and Kay are dancing, and we see that Kay had folded her questionnaire up into a flower, which she has in her hair. Frankie says that he wiped his ass with his, and it was funny because he sees the flower, oh, nice flower, and he's like, wait, is that your questionnaire? She's like, yeah. He's like, oh, that's way better than what I did with mine.
Yeah.
She's like, what did you do? Let's just say I put it behind me, kind of thing, and then she laughs, and Sammy thanks everybody for coming to the first and hopefully not annual Heart Mountain Dance. Frankie steals Sammy's thunder and turns the event into a comedy show. He's making fun of their guy in Washington, the Jackal, who being like, give us your poor, your sick, your house, your money, and we'll send you to paradise where the rent is free, and he's really mocking Mike a lot.
Yeah.
He makes some other jokes like, why are Asian students so good at math? They spend time at concentration camp. Ha 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 ha. The comedy show goes back into the dance party and concludes with Sammy putting his foot down, being like, hey, that Jackal guy made it possible for us to serve. You mean to volunteer to die, Frankie retorts. I won't volunteer after they'd locked up my parents. Sammy calls Frankie a coward and says he should have been locked up with his parents. Frankie and Sammy go to blows very briefly and are quickly broken up by the crowd. Kay says that it's almost curfew and that the group then the group disbands. Kay goes to run to her brother, and Frankie is like, you're not his mother. I raised him from birth. If I'm not his mother, then who is? Replies Kay. Frankie tells Kay that she's so much more than someone's mother or daughter or granddaughter. She's so much more. And then he walks away. Kay is like, good night, Frankie, and then says it all sad, and then she starts to sing about how she was a little girl who had to grow up too fast because her mother died, and she had a little brother to take care of and a father to look after, and she sings about flying and soaring and not letting life pass her by.
Yeah.
And it's really sad because that sucks to be in that situation where as a child you're forced to grow up.
Yeah.
I don't envy that. After Kay's song, we go back to the men in line handing in their questionnaire. And the Jackal guy is like, this questionnaire has blown up in our faces. And the politician is like, it's fine, we have our all-Japanese unit. Now go fight the Germans and let us worry about domestic security. Sammy's father is so the way they do this scene is that, like I mentioned before, they'll, using lighting in the different panels, they'll represent different scenes that take place, in different parts of the country. So you have Mike and the politician dude on the right side talking, and it's well lit, looks kind of like an office. And then you have the dark, grungy, sad looking environment of the men in line handing in their questionnaires to the soldier. And Sammy's father is handing in his questionnaire, and the guard looks at it and is like, are you sure? You sure you want to answer it this way? And he's like, I do. And the soldiers come to take him away to the labor camp. Kay and Sammy plead to the guard, who is like, I have orders. The family bids a tearful goodbye to the father, and Sammy is like, I have to serve. If we prove we're loyal, they'll let Pop go. Kay is against Sammy serving, but the grandfather is like, a man will do what he must. And we see Sammy enlisting in the army.
I said a boy listens to his father, but a man does not.
Yeah, kind of thing. And then he does say, like, you will do what you need to, kind of thing. And the groups basically get split between those staying in Heart Mountain, those going to fight, and those being sent to the labor camp.
And those the resistances at Heart Mountain.
Yeah, and well, I kind of lump that in with the people staying at Heart Mountain kind of thing, because the women don't have the choice to enlist.
Yeah.
They're just stuck there.
Yep.
And then, so men are leaving. The people who said, no, I will not do, I will not swear undying loyalty to America, they're the ones who get shipped off to the labor camp.
Yeah.
We see Sammy and Hannah kissing each other goodbye, and Frankie and Kay kissing each other goodbye. The song ends the first act, and that's the Resist song that Kay was mentioning, the other Kay was mentioning at the beginning of our review. Because they're talking about, and it's resisting different ways, like the people who are enlisting, they're resisting by fighting, and then you get the other people who are resisting by not giving in to tyrannical America who's oppressing them and stuff like that. So it's the show is trying really hard to cover a lot of different perspectives.
It does.
Which I mean, that's fine. Like to show that there's a deeper subtext going on between all these different Japanese Americans and how they view the situation going on.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it gets a little... It kind of trips over itself a bit. Act 2 opens up with Mike typing up a report. The Japanese American 442nd Unit is in Italy, fighting and kicking ass. Sammy is a badass motherfucker, apparently, and we see Kay reading the letter to her grandfather and being all proud. Mm-hmm. However, we then see her talking to Frankie and being like, I have a letter from Sammy, but it's all censored and shit. At least I know he's okay. So I think, okay, so what it is she's first reading the report typed up by Mike, who's talking about how well the unit is doing, and then she gets a personal letter from her brother, and he's like, oh, and it's all censored. He's like, basically, we are censored. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I would love to, we are censored, da-da-da-da-da. So
Yeah.
all she knows is that, well, he's alive.
Yep.
Frankie shows Kay his draft notification, and Kay is like, you can't resist the draft. They'll throw you in prison. This is prison! Frankie replies, I won't go!
Yeah. And there's a little bit of stuff with that. So, from Abe, Frankie is revealed in Act 2 as a stand-in for the real-life Frank Abe, one of the leaders of the Heart Mountain Fair Play Committee. But where Conscience presents the resistance for what it was, a studied act of civil disobedience, Allegiance incongruously recasts the resistors as the oppressed, fist-raised revolutionaries from Les Miserables. And how they talk about they were burning their draft cards, and he said, no, that was only in Berkeley in the 60s. That did not happen at the 40s in Heart Mountain. They did not burn draft cards.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't get hung for treason. They would go to prison for 5 years. And then a lot of them ended up getting pardoned after the war.
Well, there's that.
Mm-hmm.
Sammy is sort of a hero, and we see Mike's brother being like, this is the badass who saved my life. Sammy is thanked and asked if he wants to give a statement to the press. And they're over in Italy doing, when this is going on. Sammy gives the generic, placating, we are patriots doing what is right for our country speech, because he knows what he needs to say. The politician Ass Clown and the Jackal guy are like, what do you think about the draft dodgers at Heart Mountain being led by Frankie? Sammy is like, they're cowards and traitors and should be punished. Damn, Sammy, that's harsh.
Mm-hmm.
We see Sammy's dad being let out of the stockades and being shown that Sammy is on the cover of Time magazine, and his father is very proud of his son. Kay is trying to hide Frankie from the MPs who are looking for the draft dodgers, and Frankie is like, no, I will face them. And then he tries to be like, if they execute me for treason, I am happy I met you. And the two of them sing a, this is not over, we are not over, you are my future, not my past song, and conclude it with some face touching. The MPs catch up to them, because of course they stopped to do a song and dance number, so of course they caught up to them, and arrest Frankie at gunpoint and haul him off. Kay is on the floor and singing a sad song where she asks what is she supposed to do now? Then she gets pissed and is like, it's time to do or die. So her song starts with like, what do I do now? And she's like really sad, and then she's like, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm mad as hell and I'm not gonna take it. Like that's kind of...
And more about Abe, he does say that Heart Mountain did not have a stockade.
Well, the father went to the labor camp.
But that's also where they put Frankie.
Oh, gotcha,
is in a stockade. And he's like, they didn't have one. And he says, it's laughable nonsense, as if the camps were not run by Dylan Meyer and the WRA, but by Hermann Göring and the Luftwaffe. No firearms were used inside the perimeter. The resistance was open and above board, its meetings open to the public. No one had to run or hide. Leaders of the Fair Play Committee were taken quietly into custody at their family barracks by federal marshals who came at dawn. The resistors knew that they risked 5 years in prison for bucking the draft, but violating the Selective Service Act was never a capital crime, never treason. No resistance leader at Heart Mountain was beaten bloody or hunted by guards like an inmate escaping Stalag 17.
Yep.
So more dramatization, and people will pick that shit apart and say that none of it happened.
You know,
This is why you be careful.
I mean, it was not a good thing at all to be rounding up the Japanese Americans and
Absolutely
putting them
not.
in this camp. However, I am glad that it was not as bad as they're portraying here, but I know that it was different.
Yeah,
it was still really...
Tule Lake, totally different story. That shit was terrible at Tule Lake, which is why they should have just... It again, because I've been having arguments with people about slavery being bad, I'm like, okay, if you're going to do anything that has to do with an oppressed minority, you need to focus with fact. Because people will pick it apart. They will find the one thing to invalidate the whole thing.
Pull on that one loose thread to try and unravel everything. Okay. So after Kay's empowerment song, the scene changes to the stockade and we see the guards beating the shit out of Frankie. The women in the camp are like, their trial is in a few weeks. We have to do something. Let's write letters to every newspaper in the country saying that these people are not traitors. Hannah chews out a soldier who is like, I need bandages. Frankie won't keep his mouth shut no matter how much we beat the shit out of him. Hannah is like, this is not what we signed up for. Bring him here now. Kay and the others are frantically typing up letters and are like, we need to smuggle these out. Maybe we can bribe a guard or two. If we can't, we'll go out in a blaze of glory kind of thing. She's basically like, she has the tone of like, if we can't get these letters out to try and get them to the press, then we'll, I guess, fight. Like, it's unclear. It's kind of just vaguely suggested. We then see Kay in the nurse's office for morning sickness. She asks Hannah to please not tell anyone, and Hannah asks if Frankie knows. Kay says no, Frankie doesn't know, and Hannah tells Kay to be calm, because Frankie has been hurt, like, really bad. Kay starts to panic and is like, I have to help him, I have to help him. Hannah is like, you can't do shit, you have a child to look after. I'll help get Frankie out. And the two sing about how they're women who will move mountains in the middle of a war, and they're stronger than they were before. Hannah says she'll say that Frankie needs to be transferred to a hospital outside of the camp, and then from there she'll have him smuggled to her parents' house in Oklahoma. Kay is like, you'll go to prison, and she's like, I know. Soldier asshole brings in Frankie, who's all beaten up. Kay goes to him, and the soldier is like, get away from the prisoner, and pushes Kay. Frankie seizes the opportunity and attacks the soldier, who draws his sidearm, and the two struggle, all while Hannah is yelling, stand down, stand down. The struggle results in the gun going off, and Hannah catching one right in the chest.
Yep.
And Hannah falls to the floor, dead.
Yep, and this is Abe on that scene. Audiences gasp, it's a showstopper, but for the wrong reasons. This is no longer historical fiction, like a story you've never heard. It's a story that could never have possibly happened. The manslaughter of a white nurse at Heart Mountain and the court-martial of a white MP would have rocked the course of history.
Did they say that he got court-martialed?
I thought that's what would have happened. Okay. And the World War II of Allegiance exists in an alternate universe. Science fiction as told by Philip K. Dick. Because that would have probably caused some things to change. Because that would have... I mean, you have a white woman die anywhere. That would... that was mean. I'm sorry.
You don't know the power of white woman tears. The scene changes to the 442nd in Italy. Sammy's arguing with his platoon about a suicide mission. Sammy is like, we're going in at 0500, and dismisses everyone. Sammy and Mike's brother, Ben, was his name Ben?
Yes.
Ben talk, and Sammy is like, I have this girl back home, and if anything happens, I want you to find her. We see Hannah's ghost in the background being all ominous and shit. And we see the 442nd going on their suicide mission, and they get decimated in a huge firefight. We see Sammy get shot and fall to the ground. People come to collect the dog tags, and we see a soldier giving Mike his brother's dog tags. And
Ben gives Mike his own dog tags.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's sort of a symbolic thing of like, here you go, bro.
Okay. And
Was
then
it worth it?
Mike walks away all distraught. So in that scene, they're talking about that there's soldiers who have been taken prisoner and they're behind enemy lines, and Sammy's like, we need to go in there and get them. He's like, on one side of this line they die, on another side, we rescue them, and they're like, this is nuts. You're gonna get us all killed if we go on this. And he's like, we're gonna do it anyway.
Yep.
Kind of thing, and everybody gets decimated.
And this is a real unit, real stuff that happened. Like, they were the unit that was sent for these suicide missions because that was the only way that Americans would accept them as in, like, the country as a whole, not...
And I wouldn't even say it's the greater country as a whole. It's more the government.
Yeah, government as a whole.
I really think that they were absolutely thrown away. The government used them in
absolutely.
Such a disregarded fashion.
Absolutely.
They're just...
And that's why I take issue, is because there are these real moments, and then they put these things in that then you later find out aren't true at all, and it's like...
And then it makes you question, well, was this real? It's like, did these people really die on these suicide missions because they were trying to prove their loyalty? It's like...
Yeah, it's like, no, you've gotta take... And it's why I'm terrified to watch Hamilton, because, I took AP US History, I took US History through college, and I'm just going, oh fuck, how... Okay. Continue.
Back at Heart Mountain, Kay is reading the same letter from her brother from before, and reminiscing about how she taught him how to write. Kay gets a letter from Frankie, who is like, "Thank you for all the letters you and the others wrote. Because of that, it sounds like we will get released early and may even get a full pardon." Frankie then proposes to Kay via letter, and Kay is super happy, telling the other camp prisoners about it, including her grandfather. The ladies all exit off stage, and we see grandfather have a heart attack and die in his vegetable garden. We then see him pass into the great beyond, and we hear the message that the Enola Gay dropped a bomb on Japan, and we see some interesting lighting effects and hear a single explosion to signify the atomic bomb.
That was cool.
That's one of the things I'm talking about, like the way that they do sound and lighting and stuff in this show. It's really good. But this scene, I was bummed to see the grandfather die, but at the same time, it's like, well, he's old as shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was like bending over to grab something in his garden and, has a heart attack. And then you see, like, the way that George Takei did it was really interesting, because you see him fall over, and then he just kind of gets up, and he has this big smile on his face, and it's supposed to represent, like, his spirit leaving his body and being at peace, and he puts his hands together in, like, a prayer gesture, and you see the lighting change, and you hear some traditional kind of Japanese spiritual music, and you see the lighting change, you see him turn, and kind of just walk off. It's just symbolizing him, I guess, going to heaven, or just whatever you want to look into. But then the way that they did the atomic bomb stuff was really interesting, because you have the people who were dancing in the background. I don't know if they were supposed to be Japanese imperial citizens, or
I'm not sure.
Yeah, because I'm not sure what they were trying to do there, because you do see people doing this kind of not jerky dance. I don't know how to explain it, but they're dancing, and then you get these light effects, and then this big huge explosion, and then everything goes dark.
And the light effects, at one point they're all standing facing the audience, and the lighting, they're projecting the mushroom cloud onto all of their bodies.
I did not notice that.
Yes, they were projecting that mushroom cloud, and then right after they finish, that's the big flash, and then it goes dark.
Okay, I think what it was is and the more I think about it, I did see that, but my brain interpreted it as like dust.
Yeah,
no, mushroom cloud.
It was the mushroom cloud.
That makes sense.
That scene was the scene that made me go, this could have been. They could have, because that scene was one of the most powerful in the whole damn show. And there were so many other scenes that could have been made more powerful.
Yeah. So, okay. Some soldiers come on stage to sing about how America is victorious and all the Japanese Americans should be proud, and hey, you know, that whole messy situation about the camps can be forgotten now. Yay, America! Water under the prison bridge. We see Sam, alive, walking with a cane. Sam is on the phone with the army and trying to find out where Hannah is, but he gets stonewalled and achieves nothing. They're basically like, oh, well, we can't reveal personnel information, yada. He's like, very frustrated because he's trying to find where his hot blonde nurse is, because now that the war is over, they're gonna get married and make some babies. The boomers,
Lord. I sit here and I'm like, that whole scene.
Sam gets confronted by Mike and is like, you're a hero. How do you like DC? Do you want to live here? The JACL needs a DC community organizer. Sam and the Jackal guy have a bit of an argument. He's called Sam a hero, and Sam doesn't feel like a hero. His platoon got decimated. He lost 800 men trying to save 200. Sam says that he tried to look out for Ben, and Mike is like, my brother died a hero and died for a great cause, blah, 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 blah. Mike is like, we need Japanese Americans. He said, we, meaning Japanese Americans, need you. Then he grabs Sam's wrist. I need you. And Sam is like, my family is in San Francisco. I need to go see them. And it's understood that Sammy will come back to DC to take the job once he sees his family. Like, he doesn't agree to it, but that's the subtext.
The implication.
We see Kay in San Francisco pushing a stroller, singing to little Hanako, Hannah for short. And now they're so excited that Uncle Sammy is coming home. Sam shows up and is embraced by Kay. It's revealed that Grandpa died in the camp and died in his garden. And that was a cute scene too, because Kay tells Sam that Grandpa died, and she's like, oh, I'm so sorry that I didn't tell you in my letter, but, you know, I didn't want to upset you during your recovery and stuff like that. She's like, there's so much I've wanted to tell you. And he's like, did he die peacefully? He died in his vegetable garden. And Sam's like, just like how he wanted. He said, you know, bury me in my garden so that I can fertilize the land, you know. And they both laugh about that. And Kay also reveals that she has a child, and Sam is like, I'm an uncle! Kay tells Sammy that their father is not well, and that the labor camp was really hard on him, but he's doing better. It seems like he has PTSD of his own kind of thing, like that's kind of what's implied. Yeah. He does kind of walk with a limp, but they don't ever specify exactly what is wrong with him. She just says he's not well. Everything looks to be a warm family reunion until Sammy sees Frankie holding the baby, and everything clicks for him. Sammy fucking hates Frankie. He calls him a traitor, recounting how he served with people who died and how he hates Frankie. Sammy's father tells him that Frankie is family now and that he's proud to call him son. Sammy gets even more angry since he's always felt like his father didn't love him due to his mother dying in childbirth, and it gets revealed that Nurse Hannah also died as a result of something that Frankie did, even if it was an accident. Sammy storms off, telling his father to pretend that his son died in the war.
Yep.
And he has a line there too, because the father always wanted Sam to become a lawyer, and Frankie is going to law school, or he is a lawyer at this point, something along those lines. And so he makes the comment, is he the son you always wanted, you know, kind of thing. And that's when he says, just pretend your son died in the war. And Kay runs after Sammy, being like, don't go, stay here, we are your family. And Sammy is like, fuck that, I hate Frankie, he's not my family. The two have a screaming in the face challenge, and Kay calls Sammy... That's what they did, get right into his faces. They're going at it. Like, it doesn't ever come to blows or anything, but they're screaming at each other. And Kay calls Sammy a coward for abandoning his family, and she rips the purple heart medal from his chest and throws it to the ground. Sammy storms off, and we see Kay kneel down and pick up the medal. And I now know what is in the envelope that old Sammy got at the beginning of the show. Spoiler, I'm wrong.
Big folder for a Purple Heart.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, man, that's a big folder to have a medal in. Sammy has a reprise of his "What Makes a Man" song, and we see all the ghosts of the past march around the stage, and we see Sammy age up to old Sammy from the beginning. we see old Sammy arguing with Ghost K again, who is like, I tried to reach out to you over the years, and old Sammy is like, I fought in 2 more wars, and I was tired of fighting. Ghost K is like, you weren't there when Papa died, and tells old Sammy to open the package. It did not contain the Purple Heart like I thought, but the Time magazine with Sammy on the cover. And on it, written in his father's handwriting, was, in Japanese, my hero. And we see old Sammy break down and sob, saying that his father was also his hero, and that he never thanked him for everything that his father sacrificed for his family to provide them a good life. Ghost K sings about how they wish they could have changed things. Old Sammy apparently old man fugue-walked his way to the funeral service for his sister, because he then runs into the woman from the beginning who brought him the envelope. She is happy that he came and says that she has something for him. She hands him his Purple Heart medal, and old Sammy is like, where did you get this? From my mother, she replies, and Sammy is like, Hanako? And the two cry and hug, all while the ghosts of everyone in the background sing about how he has a second chance. And then we get the curtain call. The end.
And then Warren turns over and is like, this was heavy. And then I'm just sitting there like,
yeah. When that last part ended, I get done, I'm like, wow, this was kind of heavy. And then, yeah, Kay was sob. Because Curse of the Witch, anything I feel goes to you. Well, I should say sadness related.
Yeah.
I being critical of some of the stuff in it, I feel bad for, because it does try to hit on very serious topic matter, but at the same time, I don't feel like that from an art perspective that should give it a free pass for things.
Hell no.
Yeah. So like,
I agree with Frank Abe on this.
I do too. And the part where like, we have young Sammy and he's, all upset. He's doing the reprise of What Makes a Man and everything. And you have all the different people we've seen from the show, like platoon members, both dead and alive.
Yeah.
The politician, people are just coming on stage. And I realized that it was a transition thing to make George Takei come back,
Yeah.
so that it could go back to the present time. But it did make me laugh how, like, I'm just picturing you have this old man walking to his sister's funeral in this complete fugue state, reliving his PTSD, and then he comes out of it because he seems like dazed when he realizes where he is.
Yeah.
And then his niece is like, "Oh, you came," and it's like, "How the fuck did I get here?"
There's things in this that just don't work.
Yeah.
And I want to read one more thing from Abe that I agree with, and I like this a lot. Broadway will embrace and defend its own, but Japanese America did not fight. I did not fight to set the record straight through redress and restoration of the resistors, only to have verifiable fact sacrificed for a great curtain call.
Oof.
Yeah. And you know what? Yeah, I agree. And this is why, like, I feel so bad for how critical I am of it, but because of having been in that position with my own minority status, having to, counter people who saw something in pop culture, whether or not it was written by a black person doesn't matter. But if it's written by a black person, then they lean on it even more, going like, oh, well, this wasn't accurate, so none of it is.
Yeah.
And it's like, that can damage you so much, and it can undo so much work. That's why I say fuck you, Candace Owens, all the time. I wake up in the morning, and that's one of my morning prayers.
It's like a Buddhist thing. Fuck you, Candace Owens.
Like, it's like, you don't... I feel like they tried... Because the story that they seem to have wanted to tell was a romance with this backdrop. A little bit. They focused on the romance parts, and then they went, oh, but that's right, we have this that we need to do. It's like they couldn't find... They were trying to find a focus, couldn't find a focus, so then tried to go outwards with their focus, and it just kept zigzagging in, and it was jarring how it moved from scene to scene, and it was just
a little wavy.
Yeah.
I from my perspective, I feel like that the main story is trying to be a man coming to terms with his past. And regret and stuff like that. And it seems like that the overall moral that might be trying to be expressed is that it's never too late to make amends.
Yeah.
All you have to do is try, kind of. But at the same time, that's a little... Yeah, because that's the thing, too, is like you get the sister who's talking about, I tried reaching out to you over the years, and you just didn't want to have anything to do with it. So it's kind of a little bit, too. This guy, Sammy, is kind of haunted by his past.
Yeah. True. It's just that in their veering off of that focus every so often, it kind of fucks with it a little bit.
No, absolutely.
It makes it hard to pick that theme out sometimes, because it's like, okay, well then I've got to go back on like some of the other stuff, and they didn't do a very good... Like, they did an okay job with Sammy reconciling with his past, except for that they had him experiencing things he wouldn't have known about, and you don't do that.
That definitely made it really disjointed. If it would have been entirely from his perspective, because you could have done it the same way that they did some of the other moments where, like, reading a letter and having the other person talking.
You could have done that.
You could have done that to get some of the other events that had happened, but...
Hell, you could have done that with his sister constantly trying to reach out to him.
Ooh.
That would have been a better way to do it.
That actually probably would have been...
And it probably would have been a case of, the whole first act is just in the internment camp, and the rest is him reconciling with it, if it was truly just Sammy's story.
Good point.
Like, it's just, this could have done with a rewrite.
Yeah, and it's, like I said, there were elements in it that I really liked. I thought that the music, I should say the score. The score was good. The acting was great. The dancing, when they did have dancing, was good. The sets and lighting was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Everybody, and I feel so bad because it reminds me of stuff like, Legally Blonde, the musical, where it's like the talent was so good and so much work went into it, but it's like it fell short with the songs and stuff like that, and the story had issues too.
Yeah.
So it's like the two things to me, because we've talked about because of the way theater is and how it's getting better and more is being taped and able to be watched again, but if you're not able to go to a live show, the next thing is to listen to the soundtrack.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a soundtrack that's worth listening to on its own, you don't really have much.
Yeah.
This is not a soundtrack I would ever really listen to.
No, and I hate saying that because I fucking love Lea Salonga.
Oh my god.
I'm like,
She can fucking sing. Holy shit. And that's not to take away from, Sammy's actor and stuff either, but it's just like, she's really good. Really good.
And that's the thing, though, is that, and I've seen that as an argument against, like, bootlegs and stuff as well, you need to have the soundtrack in your imagination, and I'm like, well, if you have the soundtrack standing on its own in this, it's not going to make you want to go see the show. Because... you won't. It's so disjointed. You don't know where things are going.
I get really annoyed when people people basically treat my poor ass like it's my fault that I can't afford to go see live theater.
Yep.
If it was more affordable, I would fucking go see live theater. But you know what? It's not.
Yeah, and right now, this right here, COVID is pointing that out so much that, like, theater needs to be accessible. It blows my fucking mind.
Art needs to be accessible.
Yeah, this is like one of the most human fucking things that we do is theater. Because we are the only primate that sings. We are the only primate that does this type of art. This is totally human, and it should be like... it should be more accessible and more celebrated, and I get so frustrated with it because it's the human experience, and it is how we process things. Because we are a lyrical species. Even if we don't quote-unquote sing well, we still will just burst out into song on random occasions, because that's a human trait.
Okay, well, I feel like we have credited and ripped apart the show kind of enough. Do you have anything in closing that you would like to say about it?
This show makes me want to check out Frank Abe's documentary.
I think we probably should.
Yeah, because I'm just sort of like, I want to see what it was really like now. It also makes me a little scared, because I sit here and go, oh God, what if someone tries to do, because I've been wanting a musical that brings up Black Wall Street and Tulsa, or brings up Seneca Village, and then I sit here and go, oh God, but then someone will allegiance it and make it super just like this pastiche of genericness and not focus on the actual true stories, and oh God. And so it's this catch-22 of I feel like they were trying to both sugarcoat and show the brutality of the concentration camps that we had in America for the Japanese, but it just, if they wanted to focus on the brutality, they should have set it at Tule Lake. Just 100%, whole thing's at Tule Lake. Instead of going to Heart Mountain, where, like, and throwing Tule Lake stuff into Heart Mountain. Because again, it's just from the mindset of someone who has to argue all the time. You give them an inch of this was untrue, and they'll take a mile.
You give them a loose thread, and they will try and unravel everything.
And so that just, Allegiance could have done so much better. They did the story dirty a little bit.
Yeah.
And it pisses me off.
And like I said, score was good, but songs were
Songs were meh.
Yeah,
songs were very meh.
They were meh. But I will say George Takei was great in this.
Oh yeah,
I love
he was
seeing
amazing.
George Takei. What's our next show, Kay?
I don't have the rap written yet, but yeah. So we are actually skipping a week because I need to take time to write and rehearse this rap. And it has been a long time since I have done any rapping, so
Our next episode is Hamilton.
Yes, we are covering Hamilton.
So this one will be a little interesting because I have listened to...
We both have.
We both listened to the cast recording of Hamilton. When it first got really popular, I was like, oh, I want to... because it was before we started our show.
Yes, it was way before we started our show. It was when Cookie was living with us.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, and I just was hearing about the show and stuff like that, so I wanted to listen to it, and I listened to it at work, and really enjoyed it. So I have been looking forward to Hamilton.
I made the mistake of listening to it when I was recovering from knee surgery and was already in a bad emotional state.
Oh.
So, now that I'm in a better emotional state, I'm sure I'll handle the show a lot better.
Hey, and I'm just excited that we get to have another episode where you're going to sing.
Yeah, I'm hoping that I don't fucking butcher what I'm gonna try to do. So fingers crossed.
Well, you got an extra week.
I'm giving myself an extra week. It's like giving myself a whole month before February, where I'm like, I'm gonna do this right.
You did great.
Thank you. So we'll see. So like I said, we're skipping a week. So no show on June 30th. Or is that the Wednesday? Yeah. Oh, no show on June 1st.
July 1st.
July 1st. Haha. No show on July 1st, but then we will be back July 8th with our episode about Hamilton.
Yay! Woo! So thank you all so much for listening to this rant-filled, historically inaccurate episode of Tone Deaf.
Yes. This episode will be... subtitled The Importance of a Dramaturg.
There you go. Fantastic. If you want to reach out to Kay and I, you can check our home base, which is tonedeafmusical.com. We have links to our social medias, our Discords, our Instagrams, our Facebooks, as well as the Cast Junkie Discord server, where we have our own Not Safe for Work channel, and you can come and talk about theater or completely unrelated things.
Thank you guys for all of your support, all of your listening. Again, throughout this week, up until the 26th, support other Black shows. Like after you've supported ours, or even before you've supported ours, but you're listening to it now, so after you've supported ours, be sure to check out other amazing shows. Like I would say my big recommendation right now, Black History Buff.
Black History Buff.
Please God, listen to that. It's so good.
If you want some,
it's so good.
If you want some fantasy to take your mind off of current events, there's Ninth World Journal by David S. Deere.
It's so good. That one's delightful. You've got Whichever Path.
Whichever Path also.
Yes.
Which they delve a little. They have more current event related things mixed with the supernatural because
with their current storyline at least.
Well, and some of the other ones, 'cause, sometimes they deal with racists and shit like that.
Y'all should check out Colic though. That one's my favorite of their stories. It's so good. I love it. Also, my new favorite listen is Black Millennial Women.
You were telling me
BMW. It's so good. It's so damn funny. Like the conversations that they were having. However, if you haven't seen Insecure yet, which I have not because I don't have HBO, they do spoil that sometimes, so I know some plot twists coming up that I'm like, oh, well, I'll probably forget this by the time that I get to this season in Insecure, so...
We've also got conversation podcasts that deal with Black culture and society in general with... the Black Guy Who Tips, The Cut, and those guys over there.
And Black Girls Do Stuff,
and Black Girls Do Stuff, too.
We've got...
Book of Lies.
Yes. Book of Lies, I love them! And we've got Autumn the Aries, which I haven't had you listen to yet, but that's...
This is the first I'm hearing of it.
Well, she's the one who was part of the Chocolate Eclair conversation. That, yeah... I like her show a lot too. There's
so many great shows out there. So many good shows.
Grand Scheme of Things is a really good relationship podcast. You and I listened to a couple of episodes of theirs.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that one I highly recommend. So just a lot of Black shows that you can go out and support. Good challenge. Do at least 5. Support at least 5 this week. But you can do more. We already gave you some more.
There you go.
We're one of the 5, but also don't count us as one of the 5 so that you support 5 other podcasts. Do 6. Giving you that challenge. We gave you some already. So, anyway, we'll sign off for today. Black Lives Matter, every day. I'm Kay.
I'm Warren.
And this has been Tone Deaf. And then I'm gonna probably argue with someone who wants